The EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network presents Vatican Insider with Joan Lewis. Each week, Joan brings you news from inside the Vatican and the Church around the world, as well as interviews and answers to your questions. Now, here's the host of Vatican Insider, Joan Lewis.
Welcome to Vatican Insider on the second weekend of March and the first days of Lent 2025. I'll get to the news in a minute, but first want to tell you that my guest in the interview segment is Deacon Andy Orosco of the Diocese of San Bernardino in California. Andy is a Native American who works in the Native American ministry in the diocese, and he tells a fascinating story about his ministry and his people. You will also hear from his wife Roseanne, as both were in Rome for the Jubilee of Deacons. Now, you met Deacon Andy previously on Vatican Insider when he and Roseanne were in Rome 2 years ago. We met at La Vittoria restaurant, and when I learned his story, I said, "You must be my guest on Vatican Insider." And we taped an interview that was entirely off the cuff. This week, we'll talk specifically about his ministry with Native Americans, and this, by the way, includes a fascinating look at American history. Next week, we will focus on their time in Rome for the Jubilee. And now the news highlights the main story, of course, being about Pope Francis's health and his 3-week stay at Rome's Jubilee Hospital, where he continues treatment for double pneumonia and a complex polymicrobial infection. We are kept informed of his clinical status by twice-daily bulletins from the Holy See Press Office and other sources. The morning news has been almost identical since February 22nd. The Pope spent a calm night and is now resting. The evening bulletins contain medical information about the Holy Father's treatments, blood flow dynamics, etc. His clinical condition has not been described as critical since February 25th. However, Monday, March 3rd, the Vatican Medical Bulletin said, quote, "Today, the Holy Father presented 2 episodes of acute respiratory failure caused by significant accumulation of endobronchial mucus and subsequent bronchospasms. 2 bronchoscopies were therefore performed with the need for aspiration of abundant secretions. In the afternoon, non-invasive mechanical ventilation was resumed. The Holy Father remained alert, oriented, and cooperative throughout. The prognosis remains reserved." Bulletins since then state basically that the clinical conditions of the Holy Father remain stable. Doctors maintain a reserved prognosis. The morning of Ash Wednesday, Pope Francis received ashes as well as the Eucharist in the chapel of his 10th floor hospital suite. Thursday night, March 6th, as the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square to say the now nightly rosary for the Holy Father, they were surprised to hear a short but moving audio message from the hospital. With notable difficulty, Francis spoke in his native Spanish, saying, "I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your prayers for my health from the square. I accompany you from here. May God bless you and the Virgin protect you. Thank you." Now, this is the first time that the Pope's voice, weak and with labored breathing, has been heard in public in over 3 weeks. That is, since the general audience on February the 12th, when he apologized for not being able to read the catechesis, saying he had breathing problems. He was hospitalized 2 days later, February 14th. This past Thursday's evening medical bulletin noted that, quote, "Doctors still maintain a reserved prognosis. In view of the stability of the clinical picture, the next medical bulletin will be released on Saturday, March 8th. Now, in these weeks, church business has pretty much continued as usual. Let's look at some of those stories. Monday, March 3rd, in a message to participants in the Pontifical Academy for Life's General Assembly, Pope Francis insisted on the need to reevaluate our understanding of the cosmos, listen to the contributions of science, and strengthen global institutions in order to respond to the poly-crisis facing our world. The message was dated February 26 from Rome's Jubilee Hospital. The Pope highlighted the concurrent crises or polycrisis facing the world, including war, climate change, energy problems, epidemics, migration, and technological innovation. These issues prompt questions about the fate of the world and how we understand it, he said in his message to the Assembly, which is sponsoring an international workshop on, quote, the end of the world, crises, responsibilities, hopes. Also March 3rd, Pope Francis has chosen Migrants, Missionaries of Hope as the theme for the 2025 World Day of Migrants and Refugees. The Vatican's Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development announced the decision Monday, saying this World Day will be celebrated on October 4th and 5th during the Jubilee of Migrants and the Missionary World. Tuesday, March 4th, Pope Francis released his prayer intention for the month of March 2025 and invited everyone to pray for families in crisis. We all dream about a beautiful, perfect family, but there's no such thing as a perfect family, because each family has its own problems as well as its tremendous joys. While every member of the family is important because each is unique, the Pope lamented how often their differences cause conflict and painful wounds, but he suggested a solution. The best medicine to heal the pain of a wounded family, he said, is forgiveness. And he added that forgiveness requires giving our family members another chance. Now, the images and audio in the video were prepared prior to the Holy Father's arrival at Rome's Gemelli Hospital February 14th, where he continues his treatment for double pneumonia. Ash Wednesday, March 5th. In the text of his catechesis for the general audience, Pope Francis called on all faithful to seek the Lord, as Mary and Joseph did when they set out to find their 12-year-old son Jesus in the temple. Like Mary and Joseph, full of hope, let us also set out in search of the Lord, who cannot be contained within our limited expectations. This was the central theme of Pope Francis's prepared text for his general audience, originally scheduled for March 5th. Although the audience was canceled, the Holy Father chose to have the Holy See Press Office publish his message. This was the Holy Father's final catechesis on the childhood of Christ, Jesus Christ our hope. Also Ash Wednesday, Pope Francis in the chapel of his 10th floor hospital suite received both ashes and the Eucharist. In the afternoon Ash Wednesday liturgy at Santa Sabina Basilica, the homily he had prepared was read by Cardinal Angelo de Donatis. The Pope said the imposition of ashes reminds us to, quote, look within ourselves and remember our fragility. From dust we are created, and to dust we shall return. Ashes revive in us the memory of what we are, but also the hope of what we will be. Thursday, March 6th. The Vatican announced that Pope Francis in past weeks has donated 1 million euros to renovate a former clergy house in Rome that will be converted into 20 apartments for those in need. Also Thursday, Pope Francis sent a short but moving audio message from the hospital to the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square to pray the nightly rosary for his health. With great effort and obvious breathing issues, he spoke in his native Spanish, and he said, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your prayers for my health. I accompany you from here. May God bless you and the Virgin protect you. Thank you. This was the first time the Pope's voice had been heard in public in over 3 weeks, and that is since the February 12th general audience, when he apologized for not being able to read the catechesis due to breathing problems. He was hospitalized, as we said earlier, on February the 14th. The evening medical bulletin on Thursday said Pope Francis's condition remained stable, but without any episodes of respiratory insufficiency. The Holy See Press Office said that given the stability of his clinical condition, the next medical bulletin will be issued on Saturday, the 8th of March. However, the press office will continue to provide brief updates on the Holy Father. Well, those are the week's news highlights, but now stay here for a Q&A, and then my conversation with Deacon Andy Orosco, a Native American who works with the Native American Ministry in the Diocese of San Bernardino in California. He was recently in Rome with his wife Roseanne for the Jubilee of Deacons. And continue your prayers for the Holy Father. Welcome to the Q&A. The question this week is what to do when a consecrated host should fall or wine be spilled during Mass. Number 280 of the General Instruction of the Roman Missal says, if a host or any particle should fall, it is to be picked up reverently. If any of the precious blood is spilled, the area where the spill occurred should be washed with water, and this water should then be poured down the sacrarium in the sacristy. If the host is on the floor, it should be picked up immediately, both out of respect for the Lord and lest it be trampled by unwary communicants. It is generally agreed that if the host remains clean, then either the minister or the communicant should consume it directly. The process of dissolving the host in water may be used in special conditions if a host has been seriously soiled. Once the host is dissolved, the water may be poured directly upon the earth or down the sacrarium. Now, the sacrarium is the special sacristy sink that leads directly to the earth, not to a drain. This should never be poured down a common sink. With respect to the presence of Christ, most theologians would hold that although the host externally remains intact for several days, the real presence would cease as soon as the host is fully soaked with water, as from that moment the species is no longer exclusively that of bread. And then there's this from the norms for the distribution and reception of Holy Communion under both kinds in the dioceses of the United States of America, number 29. All ministers of Holy Communion should show the greatest reverence for the Most Holy Eucharist by their demeanor, their attire, and the manner in which they handle the consecrated bread or wine. Should there be any mishap, as when, for example, the consecrated wine is spilled from the chalice, then the affected area should be washed and the water poured down the sacrarium. The bread and wine are indeed the body and blood of Christ and should be treated with the maximum respect and love.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year was 1961. Rome grants Mother Angelica permission for an Alabama foundation. To honor her promise to God and with all the right approvals in place, Mother leaves her Ohio convent to found Our Lady of the Angels Monastery in Irondale, Alabama, which has a Catholic population of 2%.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
He is honored by the Church as a saint with the title of the Angelic Doctor.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Thomas Aquinas wrote a basic textbook for young theology students that became the Church's most famous and comprehensive guide to the faith, the Summa Theologica. It is still read today and helped earn him the title Doctor of the Church. He died in 1274.
To find out more about the Doctors of the Church, visit EWTN.com and click on Catholicism.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church has a great quote from St. John Chrysostom on prayer in paragraph 2744. It reads, quote, "Nothing is equal to prayer. For what is impossible, it makes possible. What is difficult, easy. For it's impossible for the man who prays eagerly and invokes God ceaselessly ever to sin." Close quote. That's the power of prayer. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get to praying.
Welcome back to Vatican Insider. Here's Joan Lewis.
Well, I want to welcome my listeners to another special edition of Vatican Insider, and the special part is always who my guests are in the interview segment. And my guest this week on Vatican Insider is Deacon Andy Orosco of the Diocese of San Bernardino in California. Now, Andy is a Native American who works in the Native American ministry in the diocese. You met him previously on Vatican Insider when he and his wife Roseanne were in Rome 2 years ago. We had met at La Vittoria restaurant, and when I learned his story, I said, "You must be my guest on Vatican Insider." And we taped an interview that was entirely off the cuff. I will never forget that. So, anyway, welcome back, Andy.
Hello, Joan, and it's a pleasure to be here again.
A joy to have you and Roseanne.
Hi, Joan. Thank you so much.
Because you all are going to find out exactly how important the wife is in the life of a permanent deacon. So I'm so glad to have you back here, and of course you're in Rome because the Jubilee of Deacons was February 21st to the 23rd, and I want to talk about that for sure. But first, let's overview your life and work as a deacon for those who might have missed the first appearance on Vatican Insider. So, Andy, just briefly, how did you decide to become a permanent deacon, and when were you ordained?
I was ordained in 2014, and I never woke up saying I wanted to be a deacon. It was through the encouragement of many people from all walks of life that I had worked with, journeyed with, that always pointed me in this direction, and I just followed up on it. And our Lord was gracious enough to be able to, tap me on the shoulder and say, you're on the right path. It was a difficult path, but it has been well worth it.
But faith was a part of your life from day one, from when you were born?
I was baptized Catholic, so on that part of it, my parents were not really big Catholics. We went to church on Sundays. They sent us to catechism because that's what it was called at that time. Faith. Now it's faith formation, and so I was received all the sacraments through that process, all the way to confirmation. I myself had always had some type of a calling. I remember in fourth grade that we were responsible for giving a report, and this was in public school, about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And one of the things that I have written a report on, was a priest.
Oh.
Wanted to be a priest. And the teacher kind of looked at me because I was kind of a rough kid at that time. I was, I guess you'd call it a diamond in the rough, real rough. And he kind of threw the report back at me and said, yeah, right. And
I hope you met him sometime in 2014 or after.
I never have, and I wish I could have, had that.
Sure.
And just showed him if God has a will, and He placed it in my heart at that time, things work out.
Well, having a number of friends who are permanent deacons, I know very well what a long procedure it is to become a permanent deacon, to be ordained. And I also know in that period how important the contribution of a wife is. And so, Roseanne, just tell us a little bit about, because you and all wives of permanent deacons really play a huge role, and you're very much involved all the time, from the formative years to right now, to afterwards. So tell us a little bit about, what you learned, what you did in those formative years.
Well, Joan, I'd have to say, as we entered in, you go through the aspirant phase, and you're following through, and you're being observed, and all of these steps you go through, all the testing and formation. And I saw it, for me personally, as something Andy and I had always done in life, walked together in ministry, and this was another step towards a higher level, absolutely, of time spent in learning and growing together, not only in our faith, but towards, the ordination time. And I saw it as a true blessing. I really did.
A journey together. Yes. Nothing could be more beautiful than those two words, really. Andy, if you could, to kind of refresh anybody who was here 2 years ago with us, or those who haven't been here, refresh us, give us an overview on Native Americans, where they live, what life is like for them, their education, how they live the faith, and the specifics of what you do in the Diocese of San Bernardino.
Well, in the Diocese of San Bernardino, they have a Native American ministry that is specifically for the ministry to natives. In the Diocese of San Bernardino, we have 13 Indian reservations, and on 6 of those Indian reservations, there are mission churches. I, being native, and a local native, a local California native. Actually, my people are Kumeyaay. That's what I am. I am Kumeyaay from San Diego. I am responsible, together with Earl Henley, Father Earl Henley, who is a MSc. We are responsible for serving those 6 mission churches. So we do the faith formation, sacramental preparation, the baptism, the marriages, the funerals, the anniversaries, because the anniversaries are very big on the reservations. It's not unusual for us to get a call in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, and with someone having an issue. And we will. Wow. I myself or Father Earl will go visit if there's something that is going on the reservation, or with an individual. We go visiting. Now, on the churches themselves, our largest church probably holds a little over 60 people.
Okay.
Which creates a very intimate setting. So, when we go serve Mass, Father Earl, myself, and Roseanne, because Roseanne is always at our side. She's part of our ministry. We look around, and with only 60 people there, who isn't there. So after Mass, we'll go knocking on the door. How you doing? What's up? Are you sick? And they'll come to the door, and they'll give us, if they are sick, then we'll bring them Jesus. And there's elders that are shut-ins, and we'll go visit them also. Within the Native American community, we are very, very hands-on, because that is what they expect of us.
Sure. Now explain something. I'm asking this as Joan, but I am sure that our listeners will want to know. A reservation is a specific piece of land. A reservation is within a state. But are there physical boundaries where,
yes.
You say on North 10th Street to South whatever?
Yes, there are definite boundaries. In fact, I work on a reservation. I work for the Morongo Band of Mission Indians in Southern California, and it's located on the diocese of San Bernardino, and it also has a mission church, St. Mary's. And I am a licensed land surveyor by profession, and I am responsible for noting their boundary limits. The Morongo Band of Mission Indians, they have 35,000 acres.
That's what was going to be my next question. Yeah.
35,000 acres. So all the reservations are pretty large land masses. The main areas may have contiguous land. And then it starts, as you start getting outside the extremities of the reservations, then it starts to become like checkerboard, a parcel here, parcel there. But the reservations, they were set up by the U.S. government as places to keep natives. The history between the United States and the Native American people, it's a harsh one. It truly is. Yeah. And
there is a federal office, though, is there not?
Oh yes. Well, we the Department of the Interior.
Oh, that's right.
Is who manages the reservations, and the reservations are throughout the country. They're just not in Southern California. They're in
many states.
A number of states. Yeah. Yes. I myself, I belong to the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians. Our reservation is located in northern San Diego County. And we have a home there on the reservation.
Well, listen, you can look forward to a visitor, because as I listen to you, I'm thinking the next time I'm in California, because when I'm there, I'm with my sister in Solana Beach, and that can't be that far, and I am going to come and darken your door.
Joan, that would be a pleasure. It would be a pleasure to show you the mission churches there, the beauty of the reservations, and just showing you where they are located. The Indian reservations were not situated in the best of lands. They were. Our particular reservation is up on top of a hill that is rocky. You can't plant. You can't. And that's what that's what the government did. The U.S. government at that time, when these Indian reservations were formed. If you would like to know more about that, there's a wonderful book. It's I Left My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Oh.
And
What a great title!
It gives a bit of a history of the Native experience in the United States, and it'll break your heart. It truly will.
I'm sure that it will.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized as a child growing up, and that's probably due to the era in which I grew up, when there was no social media, no Facebook, stories that we hear today only because of, social media. But
a lot of people don't understand that, the first contact that we had with Europeans were priests.
Sure.
So, just like in California, it was Junipero Serra, who is now a saint, Junipero Serra. He was the first one that came through California, but the whole United States, the first real contact was with European priests.
Mostly Spanish and even French.
Yes.
From east to west.
Yes.
Well, Sarah is an important name, and I remember growing up when my dad was very active in Sarah Club, which is an international organization whose members enjoin people to pray for vocations to the priesthood.
Yes.
So, and then, so Dad was always a member. When I was in my teens, I could go to the father-daughter lunches. So I learned at a fairly early age about Father Junipero Serra.
We have spoken, Roseanne and I, to a number of Sarah groups there in the diocese. And, we were there at the canonization of Junipero Serra also.
Oh, that's right. I said blessed. I meant to say saint. Yes, exactly. Well, that's all the time I have this week with Deacon Andy Orosco of the Diocese of San Bernardino in California. Andy's a Native American, and he works in the Native American ministry in the diocese, and we also talked with his wife, Roseanne. This week, we looked at his ministry with Native Americans, and next week, we will look at his time in Rome for the Jubilee of Deacons, not to be missed. So come back next weekend.
For more information on these stories, or to check out Joan's blog and to ask her a question, go to EWTN.com. That's EWTN.com. Thanks for listening to Vatican Insider on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.